Hello, story lovers. Welcome to Storytime with Effie.
In a land where the sun kissed the earth and the rivers whispered secrets, palm trees swayed gently as villagers begin their daily routines. The sound of distant drumming blends with bird songs. There lived a young maiden named Adesuwa. She was as beautiful as the first light of dawn, as graceful as the swaying palms. In the bedroom of her well kept hut, Adesuwa finishes packing a small wooden chest. Her parents, proud of her virtue and beauty, had betrothed her to Omonuwa, a noble young man from a good and wealthy family from a distant village. They had been introduced a year ago by their families as it is tradition. And as Adesuwa packed, she remembered the significant moment fondly. "So you are the one I am to marry?" Adesuwa asked, smiling and nervous. "Are you disappointed?" Omonuwa teased playfully. Adesuwa replied laughing as she shook her head, "No." And for a moment, Omonuwa stared at her quietly. Adesuwa asked, "Why are you looking at me like that?" "I'm just wondering how I got so lucky." Omonuwa replied. Adesuwa blushes, looking away, but she's smiling. The moment lingers, sweet and full of promises. Curious, Omonuwa asked gently, "Are you afraid?" "No," Adesuwa replied, smiling and shaking her head. "Just wondering if you'll be kind." "To you?" "Always," Omonuwa replied, earnest and without hesitation. A small, genuine smile blossoms on Adesuwa's lips. Their future is uncertain, but in this moment, there is hope. And as she thinks back to this moment, Adesuwa watches her with bittersweet pride. She walks over to Adesuwa and gently adjusting Adesuwa's wrapper. "Your journey begins today, my daughter. May the gods guide you and your husband home in peace." Adesuwa, smiling, eyes filled with excitement. "I will make you proud, Mama. Omonuwa will find a worthy wife in me, as I hope to find a good husband in him."
Her loyal maid Egbe watches from the side.
A forced smile on her lips. Beside her, Ise, Adesuwa's innocent young cousin, hums a cheerful tone, unaware of the darkness ahead. Adesuwa turns to Egbe and Ise. "Please watch over her. She's a treasure, and treasures must be guided." "I would give my life for her, Mama," Egbe replied, bowing slightly, voice smooth. Adesuwa nods approvingly as the three travelers begin their journey, disappearing down the dusty path leading to Adesuwa's new life. They travel through dense forests and open plains, singing songs of joy and anticipation. As they approached the great river that marked the boundary between the two villages, Egbe stopped and turned to Adesuwa. "My lady, the journey has been long and the sun is hot. Why don't you cool off in the river before you continue?" she suggested with a deceptive smile. Adesuwa, trusting Egbe as a sister, agreed. She removed her fine clothes, holding them neatly on a rock, and stepped into the cool, shallow waters. The river hummed a soft melody as she splashed her face, enjoying the refreshing embrace of the current. But while she basked in the water, Egbe's heart swelled with jealousy and wicked intent. She had always envied Adesuwa, her beauty, her grace, and now, the chance to be the wife of Omonuwa. A dark thought took root in her mind. With one swift push, Egbe sent Adesuwa tumbling into the deeper part of the river. The waters roared as they pulled her under, swallowing her cries.
Ise gasped in terror, frozen with fear.
As Egbe watches Adesuwa go under the water, she thinks back to when she started putting her plans into motion. The air that night was thick with intense smoke. Flickering oil lamps cast airy shadows on the mud walls, where charms and ancient marks hang. In the center of the room, an old woman, Iye, a powerful sorcerer, sits across legged crossed before a blackened clay pot. Her milky white eyes, clouded with age and power, watches Egbe, who kneels before her, desperation flickering in her gaze. Raspy and knowing, "You come asking for what no woman should seek," Iye says to Egbe. "He will not love me as I am, but if I wear her face, he will have no choice." Egbe replied, firm and urgent. Iye chuckles a low, dry sound. like rustling leaves. Deception binds a man's body, but never his soul. Do you understand the cost? Iye said. I will pay it, Igbe whispered. So be it, Iye said as she dips her fingers into a clay pot, pulling out a thick dark substance that gleams unnaturally in the dim light. She smears it across Igbe's face, murmuring in an ancient tongue. The shadows around them seemed to breathe, shifting unnaturally. Iye chanting, your skin will change, your voice will soften, your eyes will hold another's light. But beware, child. When love is built on lies, even the sweetest honey turns to poison. Igbe ignores her warnings. As she stands by the river, she brings out the potion that completes the magic and drinks it as Iye had instructed. She touches her face as the magic takes hold, a slow, airy smile spreading across her lips that are no longer her own. Igbe turned to the trembling girl, her eyes fierce. If you ever speak of this, I will say you pushed her. No one will believe you, she threatened. I said, too young and frightened to resist, nodded, tears streaming down her face. Without hesitation, Igbe gathered Adesuwa's fine garments and dressed herself in them. She straightened her posture, mimicking Adesuwa's elegance. Together, she and Ise continued the journey to Omonuwa's village. Upon their arrival, Omonuwa and his family welcomed them with open arms, drums beating in celebration as Egbe, now wearing Adesuwa's face, is welcomed as a bride. Omonuwa, noble and strong, gazed at her with admiration, unaware of the deception. You are more beautiful than I remembered, my wife, Omonuwa said. Egbe smiles, victorious. But in the shadows, Ise watches, grief and fear in her eyes. That very evening, Omonuwa and Egbe were wed, sealing the cruel deception. The dim glow of the bedside lamp casts soft shadows along the walls. Omonuwa lies awake in bed, staring at the ceiling beside him. His new bride breathes steadily, her back turned to him, but something feels off. Omonuwa shifts slightly, glancing at her. Her body is still, too still, as if she's pretending to sleep. Omonuwa exhales and turns onto his side. He tries to push the uneasy feeling away, but his mind won't let him go of the small odd things he had noticed since they wed. The spark he felt that day, Adesuwa's humor and unforgettable charm wasn't there anymore. Omonuwa shifts again, glancing at his wife's sleeping form. He recalls another moment 2 nights ago when he woke up suddenly and found her sitting up in bed, staring at him. Her face was blank, her hands folded in her lap. When he whispered her name, she didn't respond immediately, and when she did, it was with the same too quick smile, as if she had just remembered that she was supposed to have emotions. Omonuwa swallows hard. He wants to believe he's imagining things, that marriage is simply an adjustment, that he is overthinking, but deep down, something tells him he doesn't really know the woman sleeping beside him. As days turned into weeks, Egbe would always remind Aise that she would suffer the same fate if she ever reveals the truth. But the truth, like a river, never stays buried. Every night, Aise would sit outside the hut and hum a sorrowful tone, a song about a girl taken by the river's embrace. With the words, oh, the river knows the tale of beauty lost in its wail, a bride unseen, a heart betrayed. In its depths, she fades away. An old woman of the village, wise and watchful, heard Aise's song each night. Something in the melody tugged at her soul. One day she called Aise aside and gently pressed, child, tell me, what do your songs mean? At first, Aise hesitated, but the old woman's kind eyes gave her courage. With trembling lips, she spoke of the river, of Adesuwa's fall, and of Egbe's cruel deception. Shocked and enraged, the old woman gathered the elders and Omonuwa's family. Before them all, Aise repeated the tale. Omonuwa turned to Egbe, his eyes darkened with suspicion. Is this true? He demanded. Egbe trembled, but before she could speak, A mighty wind swept the village, carrying the scent of the river, and then from a distance, a haunting voice echoed, a voice both so familiar and otherworldly. The villagers turned in fear as the river's water churned unnaturally, and from its depths, a shimmering figure emerged, Adesuwa. Her form was radiant, her body untouched by time, her eyes glowed with the river's wisdom. Justice comes, her voice rang clear. The river surged forward, its waters shaking towards Igbe. She screamed as the river current wrapped around her, pulling her towards the same fate she had condemned Adesuwa to. The villagers watched in awe and terror as the river claimed its justice. Omonuwa, shaken and grief-stricken, knelt before Adesuwa. Forgive me, my true bride. I was deceived. Adesuwa, now a spirit of the river, smiled sadly. My place is no longer here, but in the waters that hold the truth. With that, she turned and walked back into the river, disappearing into its eternal embrace. As the river's waters churned, the villagers trembled. The wise elders and priests of the land stepped forward. They had seen such wonders before. When the river chose to act, its justice was final, but its mercy could also be sought. The river has spoken, but its justice need not be the end, the eldest priest declared. Adesuwa was taken before her time, and her fate was not her own doing. If the gods will it, she may yet return. The villagers gathered by the river bank as the priests prepared the sacred rites. They lit the sacred torch, burned the fragrant herbs, and chanted incantations passed down through generations. Drummers played a rhythmic beat, calling upon the spirit of the water to release Adesuwa from its grasp. Omonuwa, his heart pounding with hope and sorrow, stepped forward. I can't forget about her, truly. I was deceived, but I can't let go of what could have been. If there is any power that can bring her back, I beg the river to grant it. A sudden stillness fell over the land. The river, once restless, became as smooth as glass. The air shimmered with an unseen force. And then, before their very eyes, Adesuwa emerged from the water once more. But this time, she did not glow like the spirit. She stood in flesh and blood, her breath deep, her heartbeat strong. Gasp of awe filled the air as Omonuwa rushed to her side, tears spilling down his cheeks. Adesuwa, you're truly here. She looked into his eyes and smiled, the warmth of life returning to her. The river has given me back to you, she said, and I will treasure you for as long as I live, Omonuwa replied. The elders proclaimed it a sign of the god's will, and a great celebration followed. On that very day, Omonuwa and Adesuwa were wed in a grand ceremony, their union blessed by the river that had once taken and now returned her. From that time forward, the river was known as Odo Igbala, the river of redemption, a place where justice was meted out but mercy was also granted to the deserving. So Adesuwa and Omonuwa lived a long and prosperous life, their love a testament of power of truth, justice, and unseen forces that guide faith. Thank you for watching. Remember to like and subscribe.